Okay, so welcome to episode number 1. Chew on this.
Yay! Finally.
Yeah, exactly. Chew on this, a Nerds United podcast. I'm Vic.
I'm BJ.
And this is our very first episode. And we kind of wanted to do a little short introduction, basically where our nerddom comes from and where, you know, me and you kind of met, which you can't get much more nerdy than that.
Well, what better way to start the podcast really than just talk about our love of everything nerdy, especially Star Wars, because that's actually how you and I connect.
Right. So why don't you start with your first recollection of something that would be considered quote unquote nerdy?
Well, it would have to be Star Wars, actually, A New Hope, because I was about a little over 4 years old. You know, I'm born in April, and I think Star Wars came out in May of '77. So my dad owned this electronics shop, and he knew the owner of the theater really well. And the guy invited him, got us free tickets to go. And my parents, I think, weren't really into stuff like that, but because it had such a big buzz, they were into, like, you know, watching movies that people were all talking about. So I remember, I'd never forget it, there was like a huge line going, you know, around the corner in this theater, and my dad holding my hand, my mom holding my other hand, and we walked past everybody and went into the theater first and got to sit wherever we wanted, and then the rest of the crowd came in afterwards. I still remember it like it was yesterday. And then,
so this is for A New Hope?
This was A New Hope, yeah. I saw it probably a week or two after it came out, I think my parents said. And I went a couple more times later on with schoolmates, like in kindergarten, because I remember that movie, they reissued it 2 or 3 times over the years. They kept bringing it back out. So I saw it after that. But I remember that first time really well. The opening crawl and then the ship coming over the horizon was just like, it blew me away. You know, it's just like, what is this? But other than that, my rest of my nerdy time when I was a kid was watching, Batman 66 on TV.
Okay. So mine is not as big of a bang. My first, as yours is, and you obviously are much older than me because I wasn't even born when Star Wars came out. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So my first recollection that I can actually say would be considered nerd or pop, or not even pop culture, but like cult classic type stuff. My very first recollection, and there's pictures that actually predate this, but my only recollection, or my first recollection of something that would be considered nerdy, was that I was obsessed with Knight Rider. Like that was my first thing that I remember, that like I just thought a talking car, a car that could go, you know, ridiculously, fast, and
it talked to you.
Yeah, and it talked to you. And like I remember specifically, you know, riding my tricycle, my plastic Power Wheels tricycle, and talking into my wrist that did not have a watch on it, pretending that it was it was Knight Rider or Kit. And that was like the first thing that I can remember that would be considered nerdy. And I maybe I owe all of this to Knight Rider, because like I don't remember anything before that I can remember. I mean, I was, you don't remember things when you're like 3 or 4. And there's like pictures of me in like Batman underoos. And
oh god, we all had that.
And also, I remember having I don't remember actually. But there's a picture of me with playing with the remember those old toys where you like you had that string in the back of an action figure and you pulled on it, kind of like how Woody is in Toy Story. Yeah. So there's a picture of me with the Greatest American Hero figure.
Oh my gosh!
But I don't remember owning it. I remember kind of watching the show. But like I just remember Knight Rider being like the first big thing where like I was pretending to be Michael Knight. You know, you probably have, memories of you pretending to be Luke and playing with a lightsaber. I mean, I did that growing up. I did that growing up too. But I remember specifically talking into my wrist.
Yeah.
You know, before I ever imagined picking up a lightsaber.
I can tell you, man, growing up in the 70s and 80s were great because they just had, like, I grew up with Bionic Man, with,
right. I remember that too.
$6 million Man.
Yeah.
I grew up with, Battlestar Galactica, Buck Rogers in the 25th century.
Watch that. Yeah.
Yeah. And then in the 80s we got Incredible Hulk, Greatest American Hero, which I heard they're trying to bring back.
Yeah, I remember the Incredible Hulk. But like when Knight Rider came out, I think I was maybe 4 or 5, maybe.
Yeah, you're about the same age as Star Wars. Yeah, I remember that show very distinctly. Very distinctly, I remember that.
Also, one of my favorite shows also was the motorcycle ripoff of Knight Rider, which was Street Hawk.
Street Hawk was great, but it's such a short run, just like Automan. It's such a short run.
Yeah, I barely remember Automan. I remember like if I watch the YouTube intros, I remember the intro, but like it didn't hit me as much. I thought Jesse Mock's helmet was the coolest fucking thing in the world.
Oh man, I know.
I wanted a motorcycle helmet so fucking badly just to ride my like 1-speed dirt bike. Just to be on your tricycle. Just to keep pressing that button open and shut till like the mask comes down and you know. Like I just fucking loved that thing. And if you look back at like Street Hawk now, like I mean, maybe you could have a car go like, you know, 200 miles an hour because they kind of do. Some cars go 200 something miles an hour.
Yeah.
But for a motorcycle to go 250 miles an hour or like 300 miles an hour, it's physically fucking impossible.
If you go back and watch that first episode, there's a scene where he's about to drive off a cliff and he hits the brakes like or something, and he does like a complete 360 degree whatever like.
Oh yeah. It was like an exhaust thing where he punched it, and like I forget what it was called, and like he basically does this like whirlwind thing where he can like use the machine guns and like shoot around you, kind of like almost like what the fuck? It's remember The Last Starfighter? Yeah. When they're surrounded by all those spaceships and he hits that button, I forget what it's called, like Death something, and he hits the button and the Starfighter goes like all 360 like really fucking fast.
Yeah.
Something like that. And I remember like looking at that show and not thinking that it was like ridiculous that if you actually went 150 miles on a street and had to make a 90-degree turn, you would basically end up dead.
Pretty much.
So let's fast forward 20-something years, right? When was Celebration 3?
Celebration 3 was in April or May of 2005.
2005, and we now.
I want to say it was the first week of May.
Well, the year I want to get right. So around 2005.
2005. This is like a week or 2 weeks before Revenge of the Sith came out. Probably 2 or 3 weeks before.
So let's say 2005. We're guessing. You think we'd be more prepared for our first podcast?
No, I'm pretty sure. Revenge of the Sith came out in 2005. So I'm dead sure it was 2005.
All right. So it's been 10 years since we met. So fast forward to 2005, and now I got to do the math of how old I was. So 27, I think.
I was born in 77. So
I'm just thinking about how old I am now, and then subtracting 10 years. 27, 26?
I was 32. Yeah.
I think I was 26 because my birthday's not in May. So about 26. So about 26. We fast forward and I'll go first with Star Wars. So that was your first thing. Star Wars was your first geeky thing, or
yeah.
Mine was Knight Rider, and I mean, at that point in time when I started watching Star Wars, you know, everything it was in pop culture. Like you couldn't escape the fact of, you know, I am your father type thing.
Right.
And so it didn't have a huge impact on me of like what it was like, you know, like it didn't like, oh my God, it's mind blowing, because I grew up with it, watching it how many times on HBO and not having it like mean anything to me because I just watched it because it was cool. They had swords that light up. Like why would a kid not like that? So my obsession with Star Wars comes much later, much later. Like I would say about 27 when Sith came out. So mine was 2001 or 1999 when Phantom Menace came out. I would say 6 months. I would say about 6 to 8 months before Phantom Menace, and I'm talking obsessed like we're doing a podcast about it. Obsessed. So what had happened was, word got out, and this is before, cable modem, this is dial-up age, where word leaked out or word came out on the news, because that's where you used to get the news, kids. You watch TV to get the news. You would actually watch Entertainment Weekly or Entertainment Tonight. And word came out that George Lucas was making another Star Wars. So I was like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And then they start showing footage of 77. And people are, like, sleeping out. People are doing this. I'm like, wow, that sounds really fun to do. Like, that sounds like something that would be awesome. So I go full on into it. And I slept out for the tickets. I slept out for the seats. And then, 6 years later, I was like, hey, I didn't know about the celebration thing. I want to go. Like, if this is the last Star Wars we're going to get, then I want to go to, a convention where there's nothing but Star Wars fans.
Yeah, absolutely.
So it's in Indianapolis. I go there. I drive there from New Jersey, and I'm stuck online for fucking 8 hours. 8 hours to get a toy that would later be oversold by Lucas, because you could get it later, and they're worth shit now. Thank you, George. And
it was 4 hours outside and 4 hours inside, right?
Yeah. It was ridiculous. We did nothing but stand in fucking line that first day. Didn't see anything.
Yeah. That was a bad day.
But I think the only saving grace of that was that the opening ceremony wasn't the morning, like it was for JJ's for this one.
Yeah.
For this past one.
Yeah.
It was that night. So you could still go and do all the stuff and not miss a thing.
I wish they would have done that. I wish they would have done that this last time. But.
Yeah, me too. Which we would have been more sober to go to, but that's another story. But
yeah, we'll get to that one of these days.
So we are there. I'm with a now ex-girlfriend there, and we are, like, I've never been to a convention like this, and I'm like, something's wrong. And we are at the end of the part where you're just about to go buy your shit, and that's where I meet you.
Right.
And we have
and so let me tell my, so I'll tell my little story, how I got to that point. So I actually went to Celebration 1. In Denver with my sister, and it was, again, 2 weeks before the movie came out. And at that point, fever pitch, huge deal. It rained outside. We all had to stand in the rain to get in there. And once we got in there, it was like, it was just magic. There was just so much cool stuff to look at in there. And back then, like, even the stars of the Phantom Menace were, like, walking around. You can, like, talk to them and stuff like that. It's crazy. Then, a few years later, Attack of the Clones came out, and I went to Indianapolis with my brother, and that one was a little bigger, because, like, it was, in a place in the United States where a lot more people could go, because Denver's just, I don't know why they put it there. I think it's because where the Lucasfilm, I think that's where the Insider was made, or the fan club was housed there, I don't know. But anyway, Indianapolis came, and we went to that one. It was pretty good. Like, still not, the lines weren't big enough. We got to see everything. So by the time Revenge of the Sith came out, it's almost like how Comic-Con started. Really just light, not a lot of people there. And then now it's like you can't even, breathe in there. Revenge of the Sith is kind of the same. It was so packed. The lines were just wrapped around the corner. And the thing that you did is you stood in line. The first thing you do is go get your merchandise, because they have collectibles, and you don't want to try to go there on the third day or the last day, because chances are it's all gone. So you want to get that stuff first and then go on and watch all the panels. That's kind of how Comic-Con works too. It's like, get your shit that you want, get it out of the way, and then go do what you want. It's tough, kids, but that's just how it is. Unless you just don't want to buy anything, then you're good to go. Then just go to the panels. So my brother and I stay outside the line for several hours. We finally get inside. I tell my brother, hey, just like we did in Celebration 2, let's go get our shit. And how Celebration 2 worked, there were so many damn lines, you just picked one. It didn't matter which one. And you got through really fast. And you got your shit, and we got out of there. And we didn't have to ever go back. So I said, let's do that again this time. So we're going in the line. It's going actually fairly good. What did it take us? A half hour, maybe 45 minutes to get from the back all the way to the front?
Longer than that.
Maybe, let's say an hour. So by the time we get to the front, the computers all crash, and they can't accept any credit card transactions whatsoever. And of course,
No, I think that happened before that, because I remember standing in that maze of people for a really long time.
Well, I think the computer crashed a couple of times, but I do know that by the time we got up to the front, it died, and we were standing, I think, up front for a good hour, 2 hours, like just being up front. All the computers died, and they couldn't accept any credit card transactions. And I remember my brother and I talking to each other going, like, should we just leave and just come back tomorrow? And we're like, no. We got to get our shit. We got to do this. We don't have to come back tomorrow. And
yeah, because they had that one special Vader that James Earl Jones recorded specific lines for, and Lucas did not tell you that they were going to fucking sell that shit on StarWars.com anyway.
Well, it's funny because the George Sakul, I think it was George Sakul character that they came out with for Celebration 2, they made quite a bit of, but not as many as the Celebration 3 figure. Like, you could still sell your Celebration 2 figure for quite a bit. I think I bought 2. I sold one for like $100, like a year or 2 years later. I was able to sell it for a lot of money. But the Celebration 3 figure, yeah. So we're standing in line. I'm talking to my brother, and I noticed Vic and his, ex standing there, and we just kind of got this talking about stuff. And we were there so long that we got each other's backstories. We started talking about, like, hey, let's walk around Celebration 3 together and
wait in line.
Watch each other's backs in line. Like, hey, you stay in line while you go look for merchandise and come back, switch around. Because that's what you do, guys, when you go to Comic-Con, make friends. Make friends, and it makes the experience so much better because you have like-minded people.
You can't do this shit by yourself.
You can't do it by yourself, and you also get to meet like-minded people. In my life, where I live, and the people I work with, maybe 1 out of 100 people that I know don't, like Star Wars. The other 99 people don't. So it's very tough where I live. So when you go to a convention like this, everybody loves the same thing you love, and it's fucking fantastic. So I meet this guy, Vic, who loves just as much as I do, probably even more at this point, because I'm a little older and, and I'm kind of jaded and I've seen a bunch of shit, and I'm not the same.
It would take me 2 more years to get jaded.
Yeah. Oh, fuck. Yeah. Oh, my God. So, yeah, that's where I meet Vic, and that's where, like, our friendship grew. It's from Celebration to the point where he's actually, flew from New Jersey to my house, and I flew to your house, and, like, several times. And then now you live actually 2 hours away from me, which is fantastic, which brings us up to date.
Yeah, so we finally go to, well, not finally, but, Disney buys Lucasfilm and buys Star Wars. They announce another Celebration, and we're like, we got to go. We started our friendship there. We got to go. We got a Celebration.
We have to go there and we have to go end it now. No, I'm kidding.
Yeah, we started our friendship 10 years ago, and we're going to end it with the first of this trilogy.
Yeah.
So, that was. So that's basically how it started.
Yeah, and you bought tickets for Celebration a good year and a half before, which God knows why they did that. But you bought it a year and a half before. I got the hotels. We actually finally showed up there. It was an incredible time, which I think one of these days we have to talk about. And then it was one Celebration 6, 7. I can't remember 7. Once Celebration 7 was over, it was that 8-month trek to Force Awakens.
It was a long wait, which actually kind of flew by, looking back on it now.
Yeah.
But then, we always talk about this stuff, and we're like, well, why don't we just record ourselves, put it out there, and if nobody listens, then nobody listens.
Yeah, but the sad thing is, dude, we've had so many good conversations I wish we had recorded. I'm glad we're doing this now, to look back on especially. But
So, yeah, exactly. So a big overview of what this podcast is going to be about. It's not just about Star Wars, even though that's when we're launching around, even though it's a little late past The Force Awakens, but it's the biggest news in nerddom right now, before, the spring and summertime hit next year. And that's basically where our friendship grew, is from Star Wars, or started and grew from Star Wars. So that's where we thought was the great launching point for that.
Absolutely.
So,
you can't get bigger than Star Wars. Can't get bigger than that.
What you're going to hear after this intro is our review of The Force Awakens. And
our gigantic 2-part review
yeah, it's a little over 2 hours, so we broke it up into 2 or 3 parts. And enjoy, leave comments. We will always try to reply to comments, reply to the haters, maybe. Because we were on that side too. I mean, I post comments on. I'm one of those.
Yeah, we have quibbles.
If George Lucas had a fan page, I would so post on his shit.
Yeah, I can't believe the stuff that he's saying right now. But as soon as we're done, you listen to the review and all that stuff. Then we're going to move on to other pop culture things that are going to be coming out. There's so much stuff happening.
Yeah, mainly we usually talk about basically all TV, movies, and things like that. I think
maybe comic books, maybe.
Well, I mean, we kind of have to talk about comic books because most, if not all, of the stuff that we're talking about, other than Star Wars, is all comic book stuff. I mean, X-Men, Batman, Superman, all the stuff, and we'll break it up too with some movie commentary. We will do some of that too. We will do what if or what we'd like to see sometimes as well in a movie that is not even announced. And then also we'd probably do a movie that has already been released and probably talk about a movie that we would have liked to have seen, like how it failed miserably. For us, we used to talk about Spider-Man 3 a lot and what we would have done differently in that one. We will definitely be talking about Star Wars because there's a new Star Wars movie every single year coming out.
Yeah, for the next 5 years.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, that's our intro. And following this will be The Force Awakens, the beginning of it. And let us know what you think.
Yeah, enjoy.
All right, here it goes, The Force Awakens review. So, The Force Awakens. Finally, let's talk about this movie.
Yeah.
Initial thoughts.
Well, okay, first thought, awesome. It was everything I wanted it to be, probably more. I mean, expectations obviously were high, but they were also, anything is better than the prequels. But this just blew them out of the water, and it brought Star Wars back in a big bad way, I thought. Like, it really brought me back to when I first saw the movie, the first movie years and years ago. What are your thoughts?
Well, for me, I know when I first got out of the theater, I was kind of numb. Like, I didn't want to say I really liked it when I was, like, blown away because I was watching a brand new Star Wars movie like I did for Episode 1. So I was, like, really numb for the first, like, 3 or 4 hours. Like, I knew I liked it. I didn't know why, and I wanted to be careful with saying, I love this movie, like, because that's almost what I said for Episode 1. Or that is what I said to Episode 1. I told people, like, oh, yeah, it's awesome. You got to watch it, and, the whole excitement of it, I think I probably pulled like a Kevin Smith where it was like, I love this movie, and it's because I love the movie because I got to see Jedi and lightsabers and Star Wars, and it's not because the movie was any good. So that's what I was afraid of in the beginning for this movie. I was afraid of like opening my mouth too soon and being like, oh my God, this movie's fucking awesome. I love it. And then, I watch it the second time and I'm like, holy shit, this movie sucks. So,
right.
So after 2 showings, I really, really like this movie, borderlining on love. I mean, there's a lot of nitpicking involved for me right now.
Yeah.
Because
that's the initial numbness.
Yeah, exactly. And I think like the biggest problem for me, and I would say it's probably like 4.5 stars out of 5 for me. Mm-hmm. And I think the half a star or the -1 star is because there are a lot of plot holes, and I'm not talking plot holes like
plot holes.
Yeah, like not like Transformers, like stupid Transformers, like plot holes like that are maybe designed to bring the new, to bring the old into the new because what The Force Awakens is, and if you're listening to us, make sure you know that you saw the movie because this is going to be spoiled. This is spoilerific. So what basically The Force Awakens is A New Hope. You know,
yeah.
So my thinking is what I've been going at is, okay, if the prequels didn't suck so goddamn bad, and this is the movie we got, I'd be like, what the fuck? Like, you just did A New Hope, you know? But because the prequels were so goddamn bad, it was like JJ had to do something to bring the fans back and say, okay, this is a new Star Wars universe, or basically this is the old Star Wars universe. You know, this is what it was like. This is the starting point, and this is what you're going to get from now on. Having said that, I don't think that JJ would have wrote this script or co-wrote this script if the prequels sucked. Like, I think he would have done something completely different and didn't.
Yeah, I think so too. I think this kind of definitely was for the fans. I agree with you with the whole New Hope rehash, which, you know, at the moment when I was watching it, I didn't mind. You know, I'll be honest, like, when I first saw Phantom Menace, I knew this movie was in trouble when the crawl came up. As soon as the crawl came up and I'm reading it, I was going, what the hell is, what? You know,
I was in denial.
But I have to say that the opposite happened this time. When I saw the opening crawl of Force Awakens, I went, okay, this is going to be a good movie. I know this is going to be a good movie. Not, you know, the best thing ever since sliced bread, but I mean, it's going to be a good movie. And what we got was a great movie. It was a great movie. It was really, really, I mean, I love the beats. I love the pacing. Of course, the thing could have been 3.5 hours long. I mean, it felt like there were certain points where there was some stuff missing. Definitely stuff from the trailer was not in there, which I don't know if that was to, you know, that they had to cut time down, or if that was just for the fans just to get excited about, because some of those things in the trailers I thought were really, really cool, but they weren't in the movie. But definitely knew it was going to be good movie when the opening crawl came up. And I've watched it twice now too, and so the whole rehash of A New Hope was, you know, was one of the things that, you know, again, it's nitpicking, but it was just and maybe it's just the Force or something like that, but it's just, there's just so many damn coincidences that happen all at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of, like, and I think that's what I kind of meant with plot holes. Like, there's a lot of coincidences, and there's a lot of things that if you take a step back and look at, you're like, well, this is even worse than, like, you know, A New Hope, where the rebels destroy the Death Star, because you basically say, like, this is, like, 10 times bigger than the Death Star, and you actually go in with less people. Like, I think there was, like, maybe, like, 12 X-Wing.
Why did they let the thing get built in the first place? It's like they just blew it up before you got even finished build.
Or why do you keep going back to the same, like, developer? Because he keeps getting your shit blown up. Because, like, this guy's fucking 0 for 3.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, that we can go into the nitpicking part, you know, but I want to talk about, like, okay, so for one thing, we talked about the rehash of A New Hope, which definitely it's a total rehash. I mean, down to so many different things that are similar. But Rian Johnson's he's in new territory now. He's got to come up with something amazing, because now it's like you cannot rehash Empire. You can't rehash Jedi. You can't do that. You can't. There's nothing. No template. You got to start from scratch. And so he's got a tall order. I guess the script is done and they start filming next month, but he's got a pretty tall order. But so I actually want to look at the good, because oh my God, there's so much good. But I want to look at the good. Definitely the opening crawl that was awesome.
Yeah, I mean the first sentence that you get in the opening crawl is Luke Skywalker has vanished. I'm like, oh fuck, this is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, here we go.
Like, the tone was different too. Like, the tone of even the opening crawl felt like Star Wars. Like, it was short, to the point, precise on what was happening. Whereas, you know, I recently just watched the opening crawl of The Phantom Menace. It was almost like a caption of, like, a history book.
Yeah.
Like, it was like, here's the Senate doing all this crap, and dispatched 2 Jedi Knights and blah, blah, blah. And then it was like, okay, well, that's different. Like, this one was like, Luke Skywalker has vanished. Here's what we're going to see. And I'm like, oh, fuck, this is awesome.
Yeah, and the way it begins, it's like, oh, God, that opening shot, this is, I mean, probably not as iconic as A New Hope, but it was still pretty awesome. The
opening shot?
Ship. Yeah.
How about the right off the bat when you first meet Kylo Ren and Poe Dameron has a fucking sniper shot and he stops the blaster in midair, and I'm like, holy fuck, I've never seen that before. And like, honestly, that was like the same reaction I got in Episode 1 where Qui-Gon sticks his lightsaber into the blast doors.
In the door, yeah.
And like, I was like, that's still one of the coolest shots in Star Wars. Like, the movie sucks, but I was like, oh my God, he fucking, like,
how cool that was.
Yeah, like that was still an awesome shot for Episode 1. And then Kylo Ren stops the blaster shot in midair while simultaneously stopping Poe Dameron from, doing anything with the gun. And I was like, oh my God, this is so awesome.
It was fucking
And then,
cool.
like, I was like, wow, this is going to be a fucking bloodbath. And then all of a sudden, like, you got to know everything. You got to know the entire character in one sentence with Poe Dameron when he was like captured, and he says like, he's like, so
talking first? Am I talking first?
Yeah, and then he's like, and then Kylo Ren talks in his like monotone like very very like one tone voice, which was really cool about him. And then Poe Dameron says like, I can't understand you with all this going on. I was like, holy fuck, this is awesome. I was like, oh man, this is fun. Like right then and there, you just knew it was going to be fun.
Well, he's like a combination of Han Solo and Wedge and Tilly. He's like got the swagger, but he's also he can walk the walk.
Like instantly, I fell in love with Poe Dameron right then and there. I was like, oh, this character's awesome. And he doesn't really have a major impact later on. I mean, you see his fighting, you see his like X-wing skills, his piloting skills, twice later on, especially when. You find out that Poe's alive, which really wasn't much of a, surprise that he was alive because he's in the trailer.
Right.
In an outfit that you never see him in.
That kind of, so I'm glad you mentioned that because that was one of the things that really bothered me too, is that they left a lot of stuff open to like, they didn't show him escaping or getting back to the Resistance.
Yeah, it was just like a one line. It was one line of him
like,
saying,
oh, I got shot up into the night way far away and I didn't know where I was.
Yeah,
and I
exactly.
didn't see where you went. Yeah. I'm like, okay.
So
how did you get off?
Yeah, how did you get off the planet?
Communicator? Yeah, like what's going
on?
So
I mean, but like again, that little thing is, I mean, it's plausible, and if you think about it, it might not be necessary to the plot of him escaping, and it might even confuse and take away from, the whole developing character of at that point was Finn, and I instantly like kind of fell in love with Finn too. I think for me it was the scene that there was 2 early scenes. The first scene was when it was him and Poe, and they were in the hangar bay, and he was like, "Just stay calm, walk fast." He's like, "I am calm." He's like, "I was talking to myself," like something like that, And like I was like, okay, I really like that person so far.
Well, when he said he's like, I need to do what's right. He's like, you need a pilot. He's like, yeah, I need a pilot.
Yeah, like that whole exchange was great. Like I loved it.
Yeah.
Like I just love like that quick-witted, like to the point, fun dialogue that still had a purpose. Not this convoluted like political talk. But I keep referring back to Episode 1 because basically again, The Force Awakens was everything that I wanted Episode 1 to be, which I didn't get, and it's. I mean, I think that's the main reason why this movie does so well, and I think it's rated so high because of that. I honestly believe, like, because if you break it down, I don't think, really honestly, in like, the deepest part of my movie soul, don't think that The Force Awakens really deserves a 95% on Rotten Tomatoes. However, it's because the prequels were that goddamn bad that you're like, oh God, we should have had this movie like, 10 years ago. This is what we wanted 10 years ago, or what was it, 16?
Yeah, I agree.
16 years ago. This is what we wanted 16 years ago. And I think it's kind of funny because, if you look at like the other big box office bomb that happened this year, the Fantastic Four, like, I don't think that deserved a 9% rating on Rotten Tomatoes.
No.
So I think like
that's just media fueling that.
Yeah, like, I mean, that was just like people just piling shit on top of that. And with this, it was like, all you had to say was, this was the Star Wars movie I wanted, and then, or this is the Star Wars movie that you grew up with, and like, that's all it needed to be. Like, yes, it's a rehash of A New Hope. Yes, it's got a lot of coincidences that happen in the movie. But at the end of the day, it was a Star Wars movie, and that's all you could ask for. That's all we wanted. So,
Yeah.
95%, but at the same time, I think it's still a good movie. I don't think it's 95% Empire good, because according to Rotten Tomatoes, The Force Awakens is ranking higher than Empire, which it's not.
Well, I think you have to also the fact that that's not just Star Wars fans, that's new fans rating things probably higher because they don't know the difference. They grew up with the prequels. So
right, and I think also, like, here was a good point too, was I watched a little bit of The Phantom Menace earlier this week, and I remember the reaction of somebody who never saw the prequels and didn't know about Star Wars like I do, and they didn't know who the hell Obi-Wan that was Obi-Wan Kenobi in the opening shot, or really didn't know that it was like Anakin, things like that, where The Phantom Menace, a lot of assumptions that you need to know going in. The Force Awakens kind of just puts it all out there for you. Like, it tells you that, this has been going on since Return of the Jedi, or this happened, and explains basically everything that you need to know during the plots.
Well, yeah, but the biggest difference, the hugest difference between Phantom Menace and Force Awakens is that you know who the protagonist is and you know who the antagonist is.
Yeah,
yeah. First movie, you don't know, there isn't any. You don't know who it is.
Yeah, the actual antagonist of the Phantom Menace is Emperor Palpatine, who is barely in the movie.
Yeah, he's hidden until the third movie.
Right, exactly. And there's really no protagonist in that movie either. It's Qui-Gon. It's not really Qui-Gon. It's not.
No,
it's not Anakin.
It's not Obi-Wan. Anakin isn't met until an hour into the movie.
Yeah, it's not Obi-Wan. He's barely in the movie.
No. And if you think about the second movie, they kind of have the same problem.
And it's the closest to the protagonist in the Phantom Menace is probably Qui-Gon Jinn, but he has no story arc.
No, there's no story arc at all. He's the best part of that movie, but he's got no story arc.
Yeah, but anyway, back to The Force Awakens. Like,
yeah,
well, there's a couple antagonists in a movie. I mean, the first one you're introduced to is Kylo Ren. You got the First Order, and you have Snoke, and then the protagonist of the movie is both Rey and Finn.
Yes.
So, and both of their story arcs kind of grow together.
Yeah, which was really interesting, and that was really, really good storytelling, because I thought, at the beginning of this thing, when you see all the action figures coming out, I was like, gosh, they got way too many characters in this movie. How the hell are they going to juggle all this shit? But they did, just such an amazing job. And to have the problem with the prequel trilogy, a lot of people were saying, it just doesn't have a Han Solo figure in it, And of course, boom, they put him front and center, and he's kind of like the old man, the wise old man showing him stuff. But he's just like, this is the best I've seen Harrison Ford act in a long time. What was your favorite
Han Solo line in the movie?
I don't care what you smell, and kick him down the garbage chute. I just love the exchanges between him and Chewie. It's awesome.
What was your favorite Han Solo line in the movie?
Damn it! I still think you're like, you're cold, or or the whole he worked in sanitation. Like what? Like, are you kidding me?
My favorite line in the movie was, "That's not how the Force works."
Yeah, yeah.
That was my favorite line, because if you watch the original trilogy all the way through, he's the one who doesn't believe in that shit. And then he's telling Finn, that's not how it works. This thing that I didn't fucking believe in 30 years ago, that's not how it works. You just don't fucking use the Force. It's not like a GPS.
Right. I love that.
Yeah, that was my favorite line in the movie.
Yeah, that
was my favorite Han Solo line in the movie. And what do you think the hints of romanticism between Finn and Rey?
or 3 days, or
what
like that.
What did you think of the hints of romanticism between Finn and Rey?
I don't know. Didn't this thing take place over like 2 or 3 days?
Yeah, but I mean, Finn makes a couple of comments because obviously, Rey is, attractive.
Oh, about the boy. Do you have a boyfriend? A cute boyfriend? You have a
boyfriend? Yeah. And then, when she finds out that it was Finn's idea to come back to save her, she gives him this big hug, and I feel like if that lasted a few more seconds, they would have like embraced a little bit more.
Yeah, I can see that. I mean, shit, I can see that. I didn't really have a problem with that.
It was weird because it was weird growing up.
Yeah, but it's not even weird. It's not any different than like Ron and Hermione together. I think those two are a lot stranger. I would have preferred Harry with Hermione, but in this case, it didn't really bother me. I could see that he kind of grew. I don't know. She really grew on him. My favorite thing about them is the very beginning when he kept grabbing her hand. She's like, "Let go of me!" Like she's so independent. I love that. I mean, I just love that about Rey, her character.
I thought that was great because it's the exact opposite of what Han does with Leia in the Empire when they're back to the Hoth base. And and when she's like, "Stop holding my hands! I can run without you holding me." I was like, "Oh, this chick is badass." Like, I don't care that the First Order is raining hellstorm on us. Like, just let go of me. I can save myself.
Right.
Deal. And I think when Finn is the one who ends up trying to save her, even though she technically saves herself, she's like she never had anybody do that for her. And I don't know if that was the turning point for her.
I think so. I mean, it happened multiple times. He tried to save her. Like, when he first got to the planet, he saw her, there's two guys trying to rough her up and steal the droid, and he started to, he was going to go intervene, and she beat him up with her staff, and then he kind of gave her that look of oh, shit.
But she doesn't know but she didn't know he was about to.
No, but I know, but that was great. I just love that look on his face, oh, shit, she took care of herself, all right.
Yeah.
But, later on, when the other part that made me laugh was when he's like, "Look, we'll figure out how to blow up the base, but right now I'm here for Rey." And then Han Solo looks, he's motioning him with his head, "Hey, look, she's behind you." And he's like, what's that? What's that? And he kept nodding his head. He's like, "What are you talking about?" He turned around and there she was, and he's like, "Oh shit." You're right. Every time around, he turns around, he tries to save her, she saves herself. Even at the very end, I really like how his character arc, how he overcame fear. Is when he when Ren force pushed Rey into the tree, he got pissed. Finn got pissed. Yeah, instead of pussying out, he's like, "That lightsaber belongs to me," and he's all, "Come get it." I was like, "Oh,
so basically, that's basically think about that for a second. They don't have any idea of the power that Ren actually has. That's that would be nobody know, who Darth Vader is, and then could you just imagine a stormtrooper saying "Fuck you, come take this lightsaber to Darth Vader"? That would never fucking happen. And I'm not right. Kylo Ren is not as powerful as Vader, obviously, but basically he is at that point in time. When that happens, he is basically the most powerful single person around. And Finn is just "I don't give a shit. You come take it because I'm about to kick your ass," even though it doesn't really happen, but he just throws caution to the wind and is just fuck it. With Finn, he throws caution to the wind and just whatever. You hurt somebody that I really care about, and I'm just but that's jumping a lot. Let's get because the most awesomest part for me was during that sequence, and I don't want to talk about that part yet. So
okay.
Let's go backwards to they're leaving Jakku.
Well,
so the coincidence thing with the Millennium Falcon, that part bothered me a little bit, because you find out later on that Han Solo tracked it down, and he says that line well, the Falcon has a tracker on it, and if I can find you, the First Order isn't far behind. I'm like, well, wait a minute, how long did you lose the Falcon fucking for?
Right, and I guess does the tracker only work once the Millennium Falcon's turned on?
Yeah, I don't know. Now, and if you knew, he mentions the guy who actually
from Rebels,
who happened to be. No, he mentioned he mentioned the person who was giving out those food rations, like, as payment for the parts, which, by the way, was Simon Pegg.
Yeah.
He mentions that guy. He's like, well, he stole it from me, and then he's like, Jakku, or I'm sorry, Ray is like, we stole it on Jakku, or we're from Jakku, and he remembers, and then Han Solo says, like, oh, you mean so-and-so? I can't remember his name. He's like, well, he stole it from me. I'm like, and then in the back of my mind, I'm like, well, if you know he stole it from you on Jakku, what the fuck were you waiting for?
Well, I think he mentions that it was stolen 3 different times from 3 different people. Like, it started out with, I'm pretty sure the final person that stole it from him was the person on Jakku Right, but he didn't know that. He didn't know that. All he knew was Duquesne. Someone named Duquesne took it from him, and then someone took it from Duquesne, and then someone took it from that guy, and then it ended up on Jakku, which Ray filled in the blanks with all that information.
Gotcha.
But I was wondering, how did she know that information too? Like, how did she know it was stolen from all these different people? But I just thought, I think one of the biggest crowd reactions was when he's like, hey, let's go fly that. And she's like, no, that's a piece of garbage. Let's fly that one. And then the thing blows up. And she's like, okay, I guess we'll take the garbage. And the camera pans and you see the Falcon. I mean, people went ape shit, but I don't know, like, how long that thing was sitting there, because it started right up. She was able to fly it.
Yeah, because she mentions that it hasn't flown in a really long time.
Yeah.
And, like, the Falcon had problems when it was actually in service.
Right. But I think this is where JJ, like, really pulled it felt very Star Trekian to me, a lot of the stuff that he was doing, which I didn't really mind. I mean, he kind of used that template in Star Wars there, but he used Star Wars a lot in Star Trek. But, like, when he had the Falcon, like, scraping the ground when she was trying to fly it, it just reminded me of Star Trek. It reminded me of Galaxy Quest, too, when the maiden voyage, when they scraped the ship along the side,
I think it was, what's-his-face in Star Trek, where he forgot to take off the parking brakes, I think they said.
Yeah, that's right. So I like that. I think that's cool. I mean, there's a lot of humor in this thing that I loved. There's a lot of really good humor that worked. It worked. It wasn't some stupid throwaway line or something like that.
Yeah, it wasn't like a Michael Bay joke where you got Devastator's balls hanging from the pyramid.
Oh, yeah, and parents talking about masturbating. Yeah, that would have been good in a Star Wars movie. Yeah. Stroke your life there. But when they got off Jakku, I thought that Han Solo and I wasn't expecting them to just show up that fast like that. Who knows where the hell they were in the galaxy? I mean, they just showed up within minutes, like within seconds of them getting into space.
Well, they said they were. I thought Han said they were tracking.
Well, he said we've been tracking this thing for a long time, and but you're like, well, what part of the universe were you in? Like, how far? Like, obviously, you could do light speed. I don't know if you can do light speed.
Well, that's the part. There's the parts where you're talking about coincidences. That entire sequence is like all coincidence. It's coincidence that Ray thinks that thing's a piece of junk. The one ship that they're going to use gets blown up. The garbage thing that she says hasn't worked in a long time now works. They beat the 2 TIE fighters, which I don't know why. If you're the First Order and you know that thing is on the planet, and you only send
everybody
2 TIE fighters. Yeah, you only send 2 TIE fighters. I mean, before there was like a village, and you send like an entire army. Now
so that's what it says to me, is that the First Order learned nothing from the previous, people. They learned absolutely nothing. About the Death Star. They learned nothing about, hey, don't send 2 troops down to get a droid. Send the whole fucking army down there to get it. We need it. It's important.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're Kylo Ren, don't follow in Vader's footsteps and let other people do your dirty work. You fucking go down there and go get it.
Yeah, exactly. I liked it. I kind of liked his exchanges with General Hux, and it looks like
I did too.
Snoke is pulling all the strings, but I love how Hux just kind of steps in front of Ren and goes, look, I said to do this, but Ren did this. He fucked up, not me. And he's just like, I said to go do this. And Ren said, oh, no, I can do this. So
yeah, that's in the middle. But let's go back to the whole Han Solo thing, because the point I was trying to make with the coincidence that you were talking about that entire sequence is just fucking coincidence. So you have the Falcon being found, you have the Falcon being working, you have her knowing how to fly a ship that fucking big, which she's never flown before, which I guess makes sense. Really well. Which, you know, she, like, her first time flying a ship that fucking big, she maneuvered it inside the Death Star, which was fucking awesome, but still nitpicking. Then they get off the planet. They get off the planet. The ship then decides to shut down. Then Han Solo and Chewie find him. 5 seconds after that, 2 gang members find them.
Yeah, 2 different pilots.
Right, and then you're kind of like led into this conversation of Han has been, you know, going back to smuggling. And then,
which I thought was kind of cool. I did think that was kind of cool. He went back to the only thing he knew. Well,
right. But it's still, again, it's still like it. That part right there was. It seemed like it was almost like one set piece to move to another set piece with very little, like with lots of coincidences. And then, of course, you know, they get away, and then that's when the story starts to make a little bit more sense. Where, you know, they go find Maze and stuff like that. But that whole sequence of just coincidence after coincidence, you know, kind of just rubbed me the wrong way.
They had to, you know, he had to figure out something to do to get him from point A to point B, and you know, and of course, what they do is he does the whole sleight of hand and makes all this exciting shit happen. So you kind of don't think about it, but we're a little smarter than that, you know. It's like I love the sequences. I mean, I thought they were awesome, but at the same time, I was like, wow.
You know, that whole scene kind of reminds me of the coincidence that happens in Star Trek, where Kirk happens to be beamed down, you know, less than a mile away from where Spock is on an entire ice planet being chased by a monster.
yeah, that was
where, like, it kind of happens right here. Like, you know, Ray and Finn are trying to escape, and Han Solo just happens to be there, and then all of a sudden they're being chased by monsters on the plane or on the ship.
Right.
So
3 months. Yeah, those things were ugly. Oof, Rockars or whatever the hell they're called. I was half expecting. I think it would have been badass if they pulled a Galaxy Quest and had some big monster come out, like a Rancor or something like that they captured. That would have been fucking awesome. But which I'm sure they're gonna have a Rancor in one of these movies. They better fucking have a Rancor. That's all I'm saying. But yeah, those creatures, I kind of love that humor in that, you know, and you saw it coming, you know, when she switched the fuses, you're like, oh shit, you know, released all that shit. I like that. I thought that was cute.
So they move on to Maze, which I actually was like, I liked her character a lot, and I don't really know what happened to her character. She kind of just disappeared. Like, there's no way that
years old.
Yeah, you don't know if she died or not in that fight. So I don't know.
I don't think she's dead. I don't think she's dead. You see Han and Chewie like climb out of the rubble, you know. I don't think she's dead. I think she was a fascinating character, probably my favorite new character of the whole thing. I just liked her philosophy, and I liked how she had those weird goggles and she'd like stare at you. Like,
I liked her.
Eyes.
Yeah, I liked her a lot.
She's older than freaking Yoda.
Yeah.
If he were still alive, she was still older. But I really dug that because, and I dug that
basically she was Yoda in the movie.
She was, but I dug that she, you know, knew who Han Solo was, dealt with him in the past, and I loved how she's like, "Where's my boyfriend?" And he's like, "Oh, he's back."
Yeah.
And then
it shows like a different side of Star Wars that you never had.
Yeah, and she says that line that makes me laugh. I mean, made me laugh both times. But she's like, "I love that Wookiee." I was just like, "Oh my god, it's so funny." But yeah, her character was cool, and that was kind of like a catalyst for other, like the little subplot about, you know, the Force. And because like before the movie started, everyone was kind of thinking, well, you know, Finn is going to be a Force-sensitive stormtrooper, which I even thought that too when you watch, but it's very misleading. But when you watch the trailers and the Instagram thing that they showed, I thought, okay, he's, you know, and one of the things, well, we'll get to the lightsaber battle later on, but like, I just thought that, you know, he was going to be the Force-sensitive one. And then, okay, so now I can say this because a few days before the movie came out, I told you that there was some huge freaking spoiler that someone put out in an action figure on Facebook that made me so mad, but wasn't surprising. It was Rey with the lightsaber. Okay,
the die-cast the Elite figure.
No. They didn't release that. It was an actual, like, 3 3/4 figure, and it said, Star Killer Base Rey, and she had a lightsaber. And, of course, a lot of people got pissed and freaked out, and some people said, well, that could just be kind of like how Han Solo used the lightsaber to open up the Tauntaun. She probably
bullshit. They never released a figure without a lightsaber. They never released a figure.
No. Right. They never released a Han Solo with a lightsaber figure. Never.
Yeah, I know. They never released that figure where Han cuts open the fucking Tauntaun.
Right. Which, you know what, Hasbro, please fucking come out with that. What? It's been too... Come on. Come out with that, please. Lightsaber cuts open, and then you could fit Luke inside of his stomach. That'd be fucking awesome. But anyway, so I saw that spoiler. I got pissed, but I went, you know what? I'm not really surprised because I had this feeling that I mean, at first I thought Finn was going to be Force sensitive, but I had this feeling that Rey had the Force too. I actually thought her staff was going to pull open to be a lightsaber. I honestly thought that for a long time, but watching the movie and she never did that, I was like, okay, I'm wrong, But anyway, so that whole sequence with Maz when she hears that calling,
the girl,
kind of like,
which is actually her.
Yeah, kind of like the crystal calls to Clark Kent. That lightsaber,
or the cave calling to Luke Skywalker.
Yes. And so, that sequence, I had to really pay attention. I still have a hard time, even after.
Yeah, me too, because I still missed a bunch of stuff. I didn't hear.
Yeah, I read all these articles. Yeah, but so, let's go through that. What did she see? What kinds of things do you remember her seeing?
The first thing she saw, the first thing that got me hard was the second she touched the lightsaber, she was immediately pulled back into the hallway where Vader does his final push against Luke in Empire Strikes Back to cut his hand off.
Yes.
So, all of a sudden, the whole background morphs into this triangle-looking hallway, and I was like, oh my god, that's Empire Strikes Back, and for a second, I was thinking, oh my god, we're going to see Vader? We're going to see the fight? We're going to see, a hologram of the fight or some kind of, dream sequence of the fight? That'd be fucking awesome. And then I heard Luke yell no. Right. Yes, I heard that. I heard that. Because that's where the lightsaber's from. It's from Bespin. So, so of course the immediate thing that you feel if you're Force sensitive, I guess, is, the last thing that happened to that lightsaber, which is that fucking fight.
Kind of like the wand in Harry Potter.
It's holy fuck. And then, it moves on to the iconic, Luke touching R2-D2, and then you see from the trailer the Knights of Ren standing in, an entire field of, dead bodies. And
do you think that's when he killed all the Jedi?
I don't know if it's that or
Luke
he killed, all the... Yeah, I don't know. They don't really go into much detail about what that is, but, that's... And there's no other Knights of Ren other than Kylo Ren, so what happened to those people? He's part of the
there's going to be a lot of... We're missing a lot of backstory.
Yeah, with that stuff, to me, that's not really plot holes.
Yeah.
That's stuff that, they purposely left out so that somebody else can tell the story later. So, I'm okay with that stuff. The stuff, the coincidences stuff that we're talking about, those are the things I'm nitpicking at. But, but so we see that, we see her being dropped off, and basically it looks like she was given to... The hand that she's holding looks like she's been given to the guy who was giving out the food rations, because it looked like an alien hand.
Maybe.
I don't know if you saw that, but it
but he treats her like shit, though. Well, I don't think it's that guy. I think it's somebody else that probably ends up dying on the planet.
Yeah, I'm not sure, but she's given away for something. So from there until fast forward to the end of the movie, for all that stuff put together made me think that. Well, we'll talk about that later. But so then all of a sudden, I think after that, what happens? I can't remember how she gets out of it. She's in the snow. She has a Force vision. She has a Force vision in the snow with her and Finn, and then Kylo Ren is there with the lightsaber, and he's about to hack her, and then she gets out of it.
Yeah, that's right. Well, Maz shows up and kind of
she jumps out. She jumps out of that room, basically.
Oh, yeah.
And Maze or Maz is there. So what I loved about that, what did it remind me of? Oh, you know what it actually reminds me of? Okay, this is going to be funny. So when she's like, I don't want it, like I should not have touched that, I don't ever want to touch that again, that when she like starts crying and runs away, it actually reminded me of the main girl, the main woman in Dogma, where she finds out that, spoilers, that she finds out that she's the last descendant of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Where she like, yeah, that reminded me of that, but like obviously like way more serious. And when she just takes off and she's like, because I think right then and there she finds out something about herself. Like I think there's something in the sequence. I think there's something in the sequence that tells her that she has a bigger calling and she was put there on a purpose, like for a reason. And we don't see it in the actual vision. Like she sees something else and she puts the pieces together in her head.
Well, and see, that's why a lot of people have said, oh, coincidence, you know, some of the diehard fans like, no, there's no coincidences, the Force works in mysterious ways. And I'm like, well, whatever. Like, yes and no, you know. Obviously, they did that throwaway line also where, like, where'd you get that lightsaber?
Yeah,
like,
that's a question for another.
Yeah,
that's a question for another time. I'm like,
right. We don't have it in the script yet. We don't know. We haven't figured it out yet.
That'll be episode 9.
Like, yeah. Jurassic Park boy will figure it out. I don't have time. But she definitely, like, it made me think also, like, you know, because I was kind of two minds. I'm like, one, well, maybe she's part of the family as well. And I said, or she's just Force sensitive. She's a completely new character. It has nothing to do with the Skywalker family. She's just a Force sensitive character. But the only thing that makes me not go with the latter is that she was dropped off on Jakku, which, if you remember from any other Star Wars movie or Harry Potter or any of that stuff, they usually drop kids off somewhere with family or people that, you know, whatever, so that they can be protected and be away from harm.
I think might be the Max Van Sydow character, because it happens to be too big of a coincidence that that person who was friends with Princess Leia is on that same planet where she is, and he happens to have the missing piece of the map to the first Jedi temple.
Exactly, and he knows who Kylo Ren is. He knows exactly who he is. So maybe Rey's his cousin or sister, or, you know, I don't know.
So for me, when I was thinking that sequence, I immediately thought she was the daughter of Luke Skywalker, because I wouldn't have thought that if part of her Force vision didn't involve her being dropped off on Jakku, because everything that she sees there is a mix between Luke and Kylo Ren, and they're intertwined because Luke was training Kylo Ren. And then, if you remember, I think I'll have to see it again, but the sequence of things that happen are, you see, they almost happen past, present, future, right? So you see the Empire Strikes Back, you see that final battle, or not final battle, you see that lightsaber duel, or the hallway of the lightsaber duel, right? That starts off the vision. Then you start seeing Luke, then you see Kylo Ren and the Knights of the Ren slaughtering all those people, then you see her getting dropped off, then you see her in the snow with Finn, and
so it's all chronological.
And then Kylo is, you know, striking her down, and that's when she gets out of it.
And also, if you remember, when Kylo kidnaps her and he does the Force mind thing on her at first when she doesn't resist, she says, "Oh, I see an island in the ocean."
Yeah, I missed that part completely.
Yeah, he said that. He's like, "Oh, I see, you're an island in the middle of the ocean." So shit, she could be a Skywalker. I mean,
because there's no way she would know. The only way she would know that is from reaching out to Luke through the Force, through the lightsaber. That's the only way she would have known.
Right, and Ren, if you remember, is the only reason why he's looking for Skywalker is why. Why is he looking for him? Because
I don't think he
he's
is.
The last Jedi. Because he's the last Jedi. He wants to kill him.
I think he's actually looking for the first temple.
Oh,
Luke just happens to be there, and I think the early rumors were that Luke has disappeared on purpose, not because he's hiding. It's because he's trying to protect the temple from them, so that the secrets and the powers or whatever is in there isn't released.
Oh, I like that better, actually.